first, and unfortunately, all of the home of the first in the nation caucus. Tim, didn't we? We kept it that. A lot of people called me about telling you. I want to thank. A long while ago, we have a certain governor, previous governor, and it was too cold. We're Don and Kevin came back. They said, "What's the problem?" I also he's been a great gentleman. And Rod Blum, thank you. Thanks, Brooke. Scott, County Sheriff with the most beautiful family. Kaufman. It's a nice day. One of the first elected officials to endorse me. I love this guy. He was so early. He endorsed me before I was even running. He said, "You know, that guy would be good." Those are the guys we really like, huh? State Senator Brad Zahn. Thank you, Brad. I want to thank my Iowa senior advisor, done such a good job. We're looking at those poll numbers are looking very good. I want to tell you, you can tell by the crowds outside. You can tell by the crowds, but his colleagues in the Iowa House and Senators, Jeff Wright Johnson and Steve Bradley, Cindy Golding. We'll take a few questions. Does anybody want to answer? Today they were asking questions, and he was reading the answer off a teleprompter. If you want, we'll finish up horrible in political history. There's never been anything like. You know that. You know it better than most. We still have socialism. That train left socialism a long time. Prosecutors all over the country. If I fly over a state that happens to be Democrat, let's call them into a grand jury. They have never, nobody's ever weapons. Interest. We put workers first, we put farmers first, and above all, we put America first. We put America. Our four incredible. In particular, the farmers. I know farmer president that has ever been in the White House by far. I was rated that by everybody because I appreciate the farmers. I know how smart they are, how good they are, and I did. Look, I'm trying to get this passed. I don't know if I can get it, kids. If you don't love it, you don't have to worry. Very appropriate. If you don't like your kids, don't worry about it. We got to be careful with that. You're going to have a lot of explaining to do. He loves his boy. He loves his family. We also gave a giant tax cut to family farms that operate as pass-through entities, a big thing for you farmers, which constitute more than ridiculous. Waters of the United States. Do you know what that is? It sounds so nice, Kim. It sounds so nice. Waters of the United States. I said, I'm going to get killed when I repeal this one, because the only thing good about it was the title, Waters of the United States. And I repealed it, a federal power grab over every ditch and every puddle on private land that make it sound like it was a lake. You couldn't use your property. They really were taking your property away. I'll never forget when I did it. I had a group of farmers and builders, home builders, standing behind me, about 50 of them. And when I did it, half of them, these are men, and in some cases, about 5 women, they never cried in their life before, maybe when they were a baby, in their mother's arms. But they're not criers. Half of the people were crying. I gave them back their rights. I gave them back their property. I mean, it was an incredible thing. And our Department of Agriculture cut 7 old regulations for every 1 new regulation, saving farmers and taxpayers $262 billion a year at least. I ended the NAFTA disaster. That was a disaster. Worst trade deal ever made, and I replaced it with something you like very much, with the USMCA, Mexico and Canada, best trade deal ever made. You know how you know it's good? Mexico and Canada want to renegotiate the deal. I see they're up there. We want to renegotiate. It's not working so well. we want everybody to be happy, but it's better that way than the other way. For for decades, we had to live with NAFTA. What a disaster it was. But the USMCA, we're very proud of that. Everyone said that's another thing couldn't be done. We did a lot. At my personal insistence to Prime Minister Trudeau, the USMCA pried open Canada's dairy, poultry, and egg markets for American producers. They were shutting us out. You have no idea what they were doing. I stood up to China like no administration has ever done before. And I brought in hundreds of billions of dollars of tax and tariffs and all sorts of revenue pouring into our treasury from China when no other president had ever gotten literally 10 cents, nothing. They came in and they took our country by storm, and we stopped it, and we made one of the greatest trade deals ever. We were mistreated by China, and our farmers were mistreated more than anybody else, and I took a list as to what amount that bad treatment was, and I went to he did a great job, Sonny Perdue, Secretary of Agriculture. I said, Sonny, let me ask you a question. I want you to figure out over the next couple of days or sooner, how much money did China rip off our farmers in this country? You have to tell me. He got back to me and he gave me it on a yearly count over a few years, but the total was $28 billion. And I told China, you have to pay it. And you know what? They paid it. They paid it. And you all, many of the people in this audience, got a check. I took it out of the tariffs that I charged China. We had a lot of money left over, I can tell you that. We had hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions left over. We took a lot of money to save the steel industry. We saved a lot of industries. We handed checks to the farmers for $28 billion. Did anybody get a check in this room for the farmers? Because you got to be. Yes, good. Not as many as I would have thought. You all got checks, but maybe you're not in that business. But we're all with the farmers, and they got $28 billion. Nobody saw that one coming. That was one that they said, this is incredible. But I also made a deal with China, and the deal with China was a phenomenal one. My people wanted $15 billion in agricultural purchase. I said, you have to buy. And otherwise, we're not going to do business with you and other things other than the farms. And I said, what's the number, 15 billion? I said, did I hear you correctly? I thought they said 50 billion, right? They said 15 billion. I said, I think I heard 50 billion, asked for 50 billion, and they agreed. And that's why you're still doing well today, Kim. You're doing so well today, even though they aren't totally living up to it. It's still more money than anybody thought possible. And the reason they're not totally living it up is I have no respect for the Biden administration, but still more money. That's why the farmers are continuing to do well. But China and the USMCA were just the beginning of our fight for the American farmer. I also got Japan to slash or eliminate tariffs on over 90% of U.S. food and agricultural exports. People knew that. What a difference it made. I dealt with the great Prime Minister Abe. He was my friend of Japan. And that one, who unfortunately, as you know, was assassinated by a madman. But what a great man he was, and his people loved him. But he was very fair to us, and we opened it up, because we were being treated very unfairly by Japan, as we are by almost everybody, I have to tell you. I can't think of anybody that we made a better deal. It's hard to believe that we survived, but of course, we do have $34 trillion in debt, so I don't know if you call that survival. You know, eventually that comes back to haunt you, right? But we didn't make any good deals. We had no good deals, so we made a lot of them great, and some of them phenomenal. The European Union agreed to nearly triple its beef imports and opened the markets to American soybeans at a level that nobody thought was going to happen. I also won our farmers gigantic concessions from South Korea, Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, Tunisia, Ecuador, Morocco, and many, many more. I was working very hard on Europe, and that was going to be a deal that was done because they don't treat us very well. Europe, believe it or not, you know, it sounds nice. A lot of us indirectly come from Europe. Sounds very nice, but they treat us very bad on trade, very badly on trade. And even if you look at the war, if you look at what's going on, we're spending we're at about 150 billion, and they're at about 25 billion. I would say that's not right, you know. But somebody's got to tell them. All you have to do is say, listen, you're delinquent. You got to up it. You got to up it. It's not fair. Not fair to our country. But we had an election that was not a good situation, not good at all. You've seen a lot of the reasons for it's a disgrace. We got more votes than any sitting president in history by a lot, by millions. We got 75 million votes, more. That's what they report. They say the other guy got 80. I don't think so. I don't think so. He did one hell of a job from his basement. But that's what it is. It's a very sad situation. In total, I successfully negotiated and renegotiated more than 50 agreements to boost farm exports by more than $60 billion, supporting millions and millions of American jobs, and right here in this room and right here in Iowa. And that's what happens when you have a president who stands up for America and who puts America first. It can be done. It can be done. I remember France. American agriculture, you know that. Biden reimposed the Waters of the United States rule. He reimposed it. One of the first days in office, he's trying to raise taxes on farms. He wants to reinstate the death tax, and fertilizer prices are now up by more than 300% for fertilizer. Net farm income is projected to fall by 16% this year alone. And on top of it all, and if we didn't do what we did, 16% would be 75%. But with the insane Green New Deal, Joe Biden is trying to totally kill Iowa ethanol. By contrast, I fought for Iowa ethanol like no president in history. We've had great support. We've had really incredible support in that from your state, but not everybody supports it outside. Not the easiest sell outside of Iowa, but we won't talk about that. I issued a rule declaring the E15 would be made available all year round, right? All year round. Nobody said that was going to happen. I also dramatically increased the number of fueling stations where E15 could be sold across the country, all over the country. And very importantly, I let them use the original pumps and equipment instead of having to buy brand new equipment, just because I did it, because it was equal to, in some cases, better than the new stuff. So I said, do it. People came to me, they said, we just can't afford to redo this. And remember, we had that conversation and we worked it out. So I'm very honored to have done it. Every promise I made to Iowa as a candidate, I fulfilled as your president. Nobody's ever done this. I made that promise to defend ethanol, and sometimes we really had to go to the wall on that one, but I did, and I took care of it. I promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem and to get it built, and I did. I got it built for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. You know, when they came to me, sir, would you please sign this, sir? I said, what's that for? That's for the American embassy in Jerusalem, after I announced that we're going to move it. So moving it was one thing, but it would have never gotten built. It would have been, 20, 25 years. I said, how much is this? $2 billion, sir. I said, wait a minute. We're going to build an embassy, like a one-story building, two-story building. How do you don't build them for $2 billion in Iowa, I don't think, Jeff, do you? So I said, why so much? They said, well, sir, by the time we do this and buy the land, why do you have to buy land? Don't we have land there? Well, we do, sir, but nobody's really looked at that. We'll take a look. So I called up some people, and we looked at it very closely, and we happen to have the best piece of land in Jerusalem because we sort of were there early. We're in a lot of places early as a country. We've been there a long time. I said, could we use it? It had a building on. Could we use it? We'll build the embassy there. We just saved $300 million on land. They were trying to rip us on a piece of land that was not even a good location. I know a lot about location because I'm in the real estate business. Location is very important. But They said, yes, sir, but it's got a problem. What? It's got a building on top of it, sir. I said, oh, that's good. Maybe that's good. Maybe we can use the building. Oh, I never thought of that, sir. So I had a study done, and the building was very strong. It was set back. All of the things that you had, they wanted set back for security. It was a very big site, beautiful, beautiful views, really the best site. And we already have it. And the building was not even occupied. So I rebuilt the building. I did this as a personal thing, and we were going to spend $2 billion on the whole project. We ended up spending $500,000. Can you believe it? I went to he was a great ambassador. And David, I said, David, let's see what we can do before he calls me back. Sure, we can do it. This is the first time I ever did this. We can do it, sir, for $297,000. I've never said this before. I said, David, that sounds too cheap, you know. Usually I say, let's see if you can cut it in half. Cut the price in half. But, you know, I'm going off a $2 billion number. So I said, you know, a friend of mine, a very big hedge fund guy, rich guy, every time I walk into his office, he shows me about Jerusalem Stone. Oh, this is Jerusalem, opposite the elevator bank, big building. And he goes, look, this is Jerusalem Stone. I said, if you tell me that again, I said, what's the big deal? Oh, this is the finest stone, the greatest stone. It comes from Israel and everything else. So when I heard that, I said, you know, 2 years later, I said to my guys, can we build this building in Jerusalem stone? Yes, sir. It's the cheapest stone we can buy. It's right here. You believe it? So the whole building is Jerusalem stone. Nobody can believe it, and it's gorgeous. So we opened it up on time, under budget, actually under budget, and it's the embassy. And, you know, someday maybe they'll take it down and build some stupid building that costs $2 billion and is unnecessary, which they've done in many other locations, I can tell you. But it was a great thing. So we not only got it in terms of declaring Jerusalem the capital of Israel, which is a big deal to a lot of people. Big deal. But we got the building built, and it was built very quickly, and I heard all sorts of things are going to happen if you do it. It's going to be terrible. It'll be bloodshed all over the Middle East. Nothing. So it was just a way of stopping something that people didn't want. But when you look at the job we did there, and we got rid of the Iran nuclear deal, now what's happened when you look at what is taking place right now, it's so sad what's going on right now. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made the greatest deal ever. They would have never had a nuclear weapon. They would have been actually happy about it. But this group came in and allowed them to get rich and allowed them to dictate the terms, and it was really a terrible thing. I promised to appoint true conservative justices to the United States Supreme Court, and I did that, 3 of them. And over 300 federal judges. The whole court system is different. Of course, I never seem to get one of them, so, you know, it's one of those things. I get killed in these courts. If I get one, you know what they do? We'd like to recuse ourselves. Oh, great, that's wonderful. I promised that I would impose a travel ban to keep radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country, and I did that. I said I would get reparations from China, and I did that. We talked about that one. That was a big one, the $28 billion for the farmers, but much more than that for a country. Hundreds of billions of dollars I took in and kept our businesses alive because they were dumping, as an example, billions and billions of dollars worth of steel. And I was able to keep the steel businesses alive. So many people in the steel business, they come to me, they hug me, they cry, they hug me. You saved our business. And I saved many businesses by targeting, even like things like the washing machine business, the dryer business, the air conditioning business. They dump all this stuff in our country, and our companies were all closing up. And I saved those businesses with taxes, tariffs. We made it fair. And how could a farmer vote against me? After doing all this for the farmers, if somebody called me up, and I was sort of like in a wise guy mood, he said, how do you think you'll do in Iowa? I said, listen, I got the farmers $28 billion. I did things that nobody thought was possible. Even Kim said it's going to be tough. But we did things that nobody thought was possible. And we made the farming business great. Made it great again, if you think about it. Now it's slipping away a little bit, but we'll get that back real fast. But so I said, and I saved ethanol, which is a big thing for Iowa and farmers, but a big thing for Iowa in particular. And I said, so how the hell would I lose Iowa? How is that possible? And then I got a poll the other day that was, we're way up. I can tell you, Jeff, we're way up. And I think we're going to do fantastically here. It's been a great start. Great people. But I made those promises to the people of Iowa and America, and I kept every single one of my promises, and now we're laying out a bold, forward-looking vision for what we will do. And when we take the oath of office and we get back that beautiful, beautiful White House and we become together the 47th President of the United States. Within hours of my inauguration, I will cancel every Biden policy that's brutalizing our farmers. Every single one. Thank you. I'll appoint a special team to attack the high price of fertilizer. We'll have that taken care of very quickly, just like I did with oil. Period when you were getting almost free gasoline. We had to save them. We had to call OPEC, and we had to call Russia, frankly, and Saudi Arabia. We said we had to get the price. Low numbers, and this. And when you think of it, they did just the opposite. What caused inflation? The oil price. The oil. Now it's more than just energy, but we'll get it down. We're going to get it down. We'll get it down fast. And I'll tell other countries where we spend billions and billions of dollars on military protection. They would come in to thank me for the protection we give. I said, where do you must from now on? We're not protecting you anymore. Everyone thought that was. And if they don't give preferential treatment up, and they're going to be coming home. And I tell them that, and from a certain country, I said, where do you buy? We're protecting you, protection on our East Front. Conversations for 4 years, the dumbest conversations I've ever had. But they all came alive, and they all came back, and they started buying from us. American energy independence and even energy dominance with Iowa ethanol playing a part. You know that. We won't just years. I will protect the ethanol, and I will go after anyone who wishes to destroy it. And let me tell you, we had a lot of people that fought me on that one. It's also, by the way, it happens to be a national security priority as far as I'm concerned. Now, I may or not, it was in such team spirits. I said, maybe I should. Okay, so remember this. Ron DeSantis. Did anyone ever hear of DeSantis? The sanctimonious DeSantis. Now, Ron DeSantis strongly opposed ethanol. He was fine on ethanol, don't worry about it. Do that again, because people that come out early for something, that's where they go. That's what it is. So, he may do something politically, but he was very, very bad on ethanol, and he fought it all the way, and he also fought against Social Security. He wanted to decimate it and voted against it 3 times. Voted against Social Security. That's a bad one. Lessons that were zooming in the polls, perhaps. Pretty well. We're at it. He wanted the minimum retirement age to be lifted to people that are 70 years old, a substantial increase over what it is right now. Cutting Medicare, and I will not be cutting Social Security. We're leaving the age where it is. But you have to remember, Ron was a loser who currently is destroying Fox and would constantly vote against entitlements. He would just vote against. Remember that, the wheelchair over the cliffs, the Democrats used that. Mitt Romney, I'm not a big fan of Mitt Romney, lost his election. And to be honest with you, Ron reminds me a lot of Mitt Romney. So the final numbers just came out, and the primary elections 98.6% of the people that I endorsed in the elections have a 98.6 temperature. Everyone else in the room, it could be different, who the hell knows, but they're young, they got 98.6, so it's easy. I endorsed 253 people, and of the 253 people I endorsed in the midterm elections, 200... guy, but he didn't quite make it. They'll bring Herschel Walker up, and 33 wins and 20 losses, if you want to call them losses. And Kim, I'll bet you didn't even know that. And then you hear the fake news saying that didn't allow them to do well. Nobody's going to mention it. Mention it yourself. These kids get it out there, but that's pretty good, right? 233 out of 200 publications said every single time that Donald Trump has been on the ballot, individuals who want to blame him for losing the Senate in 2020, it was not my fault. I had a lot of good people got in because of me, like North Carolina, Ted Budd, like Senate in 2022. By the way, J.D. Vance did great. J.D. Vance was another one, and he's been fantastic, I have to tell you. But they have amnesia for seats that were unexpected in the midterm. Really high approval ratings with the Republicans. And I'm beating Joe Biden by a lot. Very important. But you don't hear that from the media, sometimes referred to as the fake news media. So I'm order. Kim mentioned. Oh boy. A lot of people in here. I asked people, by the way, we have these airport, we can have 50,000 people. They said, sir, it's too cold. That was a good call because it's very cold outside right now. In U.S. history, and we will quickly do that again. We had the most secure, we had the best numbers that we've ever had in recorded history. I built hundreds of miles of wall in areas where it was needed. We did hundreds of miles, and then, thank you. I don't know what she said, but whatever she said sounds good. But give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge to keep people out, and we had stay in Mexico policy. You think it was easy to get Mexico to say, oh, we'd love to have a stay in Mexico here? Nobody ever got them out. They never went back. They never came back. They'd be given a court hearing, and they would just not even, they would throw the piece of paper away. It didn't mean anything. But I got a stay in Mexico policy from Mexico, if you can believe it. The reason was, I said, look, you have to do this because if you don't do it, we're going to put tariffs on everything that you have. They thought I was crazy. I said, listen, I need about 28,000 soldiers, of your soldiers, to keep people from coming into the United States. No, we will not. We will not do it. We had a woman in the State Department. She said, sir, you'll never get these things. 10 different things I asked for, including the medical, which, as you know, is now expired. Person in Mexico. And I said, no, you'll do it. No, we will not do this. Why would you say that we would do that? 28,000 soldiers, that's a lot of soldiers. I said, no, you're going to do it. You're going to keep people story. We're going to put tax billions of dollars. So I really think you're going to do it. So, wait till I explain that to my party. Wait till I explain this deal. But they did, and they were great. And I really like the president of Mexico. He's a socialist, but, can't have everything, right? He's a great guy, actually. He's a friend of mine. He said that election was rigged. That election was rigged. He said, I had one of them 20 years ago, President. I had one. It's a very, very tough country, Mexico. Very, very tough. Very dangerous in many ways. But they have a wonderful man leading it. But they did that, and we had stay in Mexico, and died, and many of them did. Not that many, but many. And they'd come into the United States and live happily ever after. But we kept everybody out. There wasn't MS-13. We took MS-13 out by the tens of thousands. We brought them back. We had 3 countries in particular, and we brought them back, and we, when I first came in, I said, why aren't we bringing them back, sir? Under the Obama administration, they wouldn't accept them back, sir. I said, what do you mean they wouldn't accept them back? Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, a couple of others, but those three in particular, they wouldn't accept them back. And I said, well, how much money do we pay them? Sir, we pay them $750 million a year. I said, okay, explain to them that as of this moment, they're not getting any money anymore. Because they literally wouldn't. When we had a plane flying in with these horrible people, MS-13 and others that are just horrible, killers, rapists, drug dealers, they'd be flying, and they'd put planes on the runway so our planes couldn't land. They wouldn't let our buses in. They wouldn't let anything, and they didn't want them back. They were gone. They were the ones that got them out. They'd put them in the caravans. I came up with that name, but it was a caravan. They'd put them in the caravans, oftentimes in the middle of the caravan. And you'd have this big caravan coming up to the country. It's just terrible. So what I said, we ended all of that stuff. You didn't see that until this administration. Now it blows everything away. Nobody's ever seen it. They won't take them back. So I said, okay, 3 calls almost at the same time. 3 leaders of the 3 countries that I mentioned. So there must be a misunderstanding. Have MS-13 come. And we got them out by the tens of thousands. Tens of thousands. Our countries, these countries, the other countries, they're emptying out their prisons, their insane asylums, their mental institutions. Unbelievable cost. They're sending them to us. There was a picture and a little story about a mental institution in a certain country. And the doctor said, you know, I'm so busy. He said, now I have nobody here. You know where they are? Mental institution. You know where they are? They're in the United States. Would have done the same thing. I would have. They're cleaning out their prisons. They're emptying their prisons. Their prisons are empty. They're mental institutions. They're insane asylums. We don't want to be caught in that predicament. So 2 words. Insane asylum. These are words you're not supposed to be using anymore. It's not politically incorrect. But mental thousands and thousands. And think of the money they're saving and all of the problems they're saving. And they're dumping them into the United States of America. We're like a know what's happening. Who can even think that this is acceptable? And, you know, when you woke all over the place, but you look at all of these things that they do, you can't win elections with that. You can only win if you cheat at elections, okay? Because there's nobody, and the prisoners all coming into all being brought right into the United States, dumped into the United States. And we have to be very careful. Votes, you got to be there. You know, we used to have one day, we used to have paper ballots. We didn't have mail-in, you know, mail them in any time you want. They come in by the thousands, tens of thousands. 200 million ballots. Where are they coming from? We don't know. It's like they're getting dumped in their heads. It's a disgrace. But we used to have paper ballots. We used to have things where voter ID. You come in and they say, we would like to see your voter ID. And they'd show a nice picture. You know, the Democrats for their convention had a voter ID. It was like this. It was like a prisoner wears, actually, that had more information on that person. And that was for the Democrat National Convention. When they had the Democrat last time, they had the biggest voter ID I've ever seen. They had pictures from every angle. Angles that you don't even want to see, they had pictures. And, but we're not allowed to have one for voting. You have to have one when you buy groceries and other things, but you can't have one for voting. That's because they want to cheat. That's the only reason. Even 88% of the Democrats, I'm asking Republican governors to do, there's a Republican governor, but I'm asking that what they should do while they have this power and go paper ballot. There for 62 days, think of it. It never ends. In fact, on election night, they say, we can't call the election because they have another 2 days, or they have another 2 weeks in some cases to vote. No, it's horrible. No, voter ID, same-day voting. You know, in the old days, we had same-day voting. And they can call a holiday if they want. They can do whatever they want. France had 36 million people vote. They used to have machines. They used to have all different things, and they were getting just really bad results, people were ripping off the system. Because anytime, Jimmy Carter said it with his commission, anytime you have mail-in ballots, the system is inherently dishonest. Because they go out, they come out. So we need to have voter ID, and it's over. Yeah, I'm so popular. It's so popular. Now, France had 36 million people vote. At 10 and 12, we should have the same thing. It's a horrible thing. We should have the machines, the vote within 2 weeks. You know, and what they do to those machines, what they're doing is just, our country is, it's really being hurt very badly by it. But everybody likes it. I've never seen an audience that doesn't go crazy about it. And I hope Republican governors that have that can start the process, because that's what we should all. Increase in Border Patrol and a colossal increase in the number of ICE deportation officers. Just so you know, these are incredible patriots. You know, I know some of the people sitting up here, and they're tough guys, but they're not, they don't want this job. They will walk into a meeting, and I said, "Do you really like doing that?" You know, this guy right over here, my friend, he doesn't want to do it. He thinks he's a tough guy. He's not tough. These guys are incredible patriots, and they would grab them and they would take them out. You know, the MS-13 guys, they would, not so long ago, they killed 2 young 16-year-old girls walking to school, and they didn't do it with guns because that's too quick. They used knives, and they cut them up and sliced them up, and they did it that way because it was more painful and it was slower. And these are the people we have living here. And the ICE people, they go in and they take them out, and they either throw them in jail or they bring them back to the country, depending on the severity. And they are great, and they're great patriots, and they get scorned. They're scorned by the radical left. They're actually scorned. The job they do is incredible. I'll ask every state and federal agency to identify every known or suspected gang member in America, and every one of them that is here illegally, and everybody knows it because your local sheriffs know who they are. This sheriff knows every bad person in your area. Politically incorrect, but he knows, you know, the good ones, the bad ones, you know where they are. You can't just bring people in for that, but the local law enforcement knows. They came. Before I arrive, the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It'll take 24 hours if it's not done before then. What a shame, what a shame, what a shame. And the numbers, the deaths, and the people are being so horribly injured is far greater than what they're reporting. They blow down the city, buildings all over the building. It looks like a demolition site. Which is exactly what it is, and so many people are being killed, and then they'll say, 2 people were injured. No, many people are killed, they're being settled. It would have never happened if I were president, 0 chance. And even the Democrats admit that. Even the Democrats say, no, if Trump were president, and he was never going to do that until I left. And then he said, well, and you know what happened? He watched what happened in Afghanistan. When he saw that horror show in Afghanistan, the way we took our soldiers out first, you don't bring the soldiers out first. You bring the soldiers out last. First you get your people out, then you get your equipment out. They kept $85 billion worth of equipment. And now they got 700,000 rifles, machine guns, and guns, 70,000 vehicles, many of them armor-plated, a few hundred cars, 70,000 of the most sophisticated vehicles in the world. We handed it to them. We handed it to them. The box. You know, they're good fighters, but they never fight at night because you couldn't see at night. Now they can see. And I dealt with Abdul. He was the leader. I said, Abdul, I was very proud of this because, you know, Jesse James, the bank robbers, they said, why do you always rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is, right? Why do I speak to Abdul? That's where the problem is. Abdul is the leader of the Taliban. And I said, Abdul, nice to talk to you. I said, but listen, if you kill any more of our people, because they were going to town, the snipers, they were going to town on our people during the Obama administration in particular. They were knocking them out one after another, and I see the end result. I'd go to Walter Reed, which is so incredible, the doctors and the job they do, but I'd see what was left, what these people, what the parents went through with their beautiful, they don't even believe it when they're standing by the bedside crying. They don't even believe what happened. To their child. I said, Abdul, if you kill any soldier, we are going to hit you harder than any country has ever been hit in the history of America. We're going to hit you harder. And we went 18 months without one soldier killed in Afghanistan. And then we had the election. Horrible day where we took the soldiers out first. Remember that? That was a horrible day. I think it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. And when Putin looked at that, think of that, 18 months without one soldier being... Biden actually put it in his speech and they were screaming at him, don't say that. That's good news for Trump. But we did a good job with this administration. You could end up in World War III because they don't speak right. They don't send the messages out right. They act tough when they should act nice. They act nice when they should act tough. Honestly, they don't know what the hell. We could end up in a major war. There are others out there a lot sooner than people think. And, we have a word called nuclear. Nobody was allowed to use that word. For years and years, you couldn't use the word nuclear because it's not allowed to say it. I had people come down from MIT and tell me about nuclear. The power is so enormous. So this is not like the Second World War where we have army tanks and rifles and we go after each other. This is a level, I have no clue what they're doing. And you see it just like I do. You see the same language. They say the wrong. Biden said initially on Afghanistan, well, he could go in and maybe take over some of the country. That was not a good signal. That was not a good signal. People said, did he really say that? But we have inflation. These are all self-inflicted years. What it's done to countries that had to suffer through it destroys the countries. It's like cancer, destroys the countries. We have now banks that are closing. Two big banks yesterday closed. That's a bad sign. That could be the beginning. We have an economy that's in shambles. Last year, you don't realize this, last year we had the worst stock market since 1929. Did you know that? We had the worst stock market, 4 or 5 times as much in some cases, but we had the worst stock market since 1929. It actually goes back longer than that. It goes back to the worst stock market. People have their 401ks. Does anybody have a 401k? Raise your hand if you have a fortune with a 401k. I had a police officer in New York, they're great people. He came up to me and said, sir, I want to thank you. My wife always said I'm an incompetent, horrible investor. We have a 401k. And all my life I was suffering with her, sir. You don't know what you're doing. You did. Sir, she gave me the biggest kiss last night. I was up 59% last year. This is a few years ago. And my wife, I sort of just remembered it, but many people said that. They were up 50, 60, 70, 80%. And now you're going down at numbers that nobody would have thought. Yeah, it was the worst country that's a mess, but more importantly, it's a world that's in serious trouble because we have such an impact on the world. We lead the world, or we should, but we're not leading it not through the United States. Who would have thought of that one? Who would have thought Saudi Arabia? And I said this 2 years ago. I said, if they keep going like this, Saudi Arabia is going to get together with Iran through China, and China is going to control that whole situation. It should have driven Russia right into the arms of China, something that is unacceptable. When you're a child studying history, The one thing you learn is you never want. Biden has done that. They have a big, beautiful alliance right now. And they've driven Russia right into the arms of China, taken very quickly because they were in bad shape financially. Do any more business with the United States. And they said, we will not buy oil from them. They didn't. And we were in a position where we could have made a great deal, and made a deal for them too. Made a deal for everybody to keep the world safe. But when I left, all of a sudden, China went back and started paying a fortune for the oil, and they're rich now. Iran is very rich now, and it's a much different situation than it was. Iran was ready. They were totally ready to make a deal. That we had a bad election, really bad, and we're in a position now that we have problems that I don't think we've ever had a more dangerous time like we're in right now. What they've done to our country in 2 years is unthinkable. It's unthinkable. Standing before you today, I am the only candidate who can make this promise. I will prevent World War III, because I really believe you're going to have World War III. Because I believe you're going to have it. Thank you. You know, I saw outside somebody was wearing a cap. Trump was right about everything. I hate to say it, it's true. Germany with the pipeline, I said, what are you doing? The German delegation during the United Nations speech, my speech, they were laughing. They thought it was so funny. A year later, Trump was right about that one. Germany is now, you know what Germany is doing? Building coal plants all over the place as fast as they can. That didn't work out too well. But I was the one that exposed Nord Stream 2. It's called Nord Stream 2, a pipeline from Russia to Germany, but other parts of Europe going to supply. And I said, what are you people doing? And remember this to me. He said, because you will be surrendering in a certain period of time. Nobody knew it was going to be in 2 years. But you will be, you've had many wars with Russia. They've been big wars. You cannot get 85% of your energy from Russia. You got to find other sources. But they thought it was so funny. Now they say Trump was right about that one too. But every step of the way we will be and communists and all of the other menacing forces that have been trying to take us down with hoaxes and witch hunts, and they've been trying to do anything. What it means. The term is simple. They're breaking every law to persecute us, while Joe Biden's brazen corruption and criminality is totally ignored. I mean, you take a look at what's on the laptop from hell. Hunter, my son, it's just not working out real well. This is, you know, at some point, because that laptop is a disaster. Hunter went to him, actually, and he said, Dad, we have a problem. What? Big problem? Well, why is that a problem, son? Well, that was a few months ago, and the repair shop now owns it. Oh, that's not good. Well, what's on it? At some point, he's going to say, you know, I'm not sure if this is so good. This is not working out too good. But, you know, in the meantime, they go after us. What's happening is very simple. Our enemies are desperate to stop us because they know that we are the only ones who can stop them. And I will justice system. Look at what they've done to our justice system, what they have done to our justice system. I will direct the Department of Justice to go after Marxist prosecutors' offices to make them pay for their illegal race-based, will revoke China's most favored nation's trade status. You know, China says they're a growing country. We need help. They don't need help. They're doing just fine. But can you believe that they have a most favored nation? I will implement a 4-year plan to phase out all Chinese imports of essential goods and gain total independence from China. And I will be accountable for unleashing the China virus upon the world. Nobody can afford what it is. You know, I told you before that I was very proud of the trade deal that I made with China and the farmers. But then we got hit with COVID. And I don't even talk about that deal anymore because COVID was so horrible and devastating, because it happens to be Iowa. Goodwill and the good feeling and everything that was good about it got wiped out with this horrible China virus that came in. COVID, they call COVID-19. What's COVID? What is COVID? It's the China virus. It is the China virus. And it came in and it wiped out all of the goodwill. It was such I would go around for a few months before this happened, and I'd say, we just made the greatest deal with China. It's good for China, good for us. We're supplying them with food. They're paying us a fortune. Remember I said, all the farmers, I just made a deal, because the farmers were with me. You know, China was really hitting us 2 years, and they stuck tight. They were unbelievable. They didn't want anything. They'd interview people, and they'd say, the president's doing the right thing. I don't care. I'm losing my shirt, but the president's doing the right thing. And they stuck with me. I'll never forget that, how great the farmers were. You know, everyone always, I said, I'm going to get you so much. They said, we don't want anything, sir. We just want a level playing field. I'll never forget that. Nobody else said that to me. Everyone else, they want subsidies, they want everything. The windmills, how about the windmill stuff? The windmill stuff, they get a lot of subsidy. Believable people. They just wanted, they said it, a level playing field. Economy in world history. 2018 was the big year. I said, oh, this is a terrible thing. It's not a good, I don't want that. And we built this country so we had an economy that we were leapfrogging anyway, but we did it twice. We built the economy twice, and we're really proud of it. I will protect Social Security and Medicare, defending our seniors from both the radical left and the rhinos. They're worse than the Democrats. You don't know where the rhinos are coming. At least you know where the Democrats are coming from. And it's not a good place. But the rhinos, sometimes you don't know. As I announced earlier this month, I will pursue a quantum leap in the American standard of living. We have the most beautiful lands in the country to give count new shot at home ownership and the American dream. We'll build cities, and we will support baby bonuses for a new baby problem too. I will immediately sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school that's pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity. And any other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children, their children. You know the amazing thing about that? Look at the hand you get for that, bigger than, we're going to be energy and thing is 10 years, if somebody said that, you wouldn't even know what they're talking about. That they can mutilate our children is without your permission. Parental rights. I said the other day, I will bring back parental rights into our school system, right? And the place went crazy. The place went crazy, and I said, can you imagine what I'm doing? I'm saying, parents, your country has gone crazy with this nonsense. I really believe it's people that hate our country. It has to be. It's people that hate our country. And just as you're doing, that's another easy one. Broken. That's a little weightlifting record guy. Boom. It's so ridiculous. As the guy went by her, guy's going so fast in the swimming pool that she got windburn. So she was badly injured. The whole thing is crazy, and it really hurts women. It's the opposite of dignity. It's horrible. And you did it here. I know one thing. If I was a basketball coach, I'd be the greatest coach in history. I'd have a women's team. I'd have all men. I'd have I'm not a fan of LeBron James. I don't like LeBron. But I'd say, hey, LeBron, you ever think of becoming a woman? Because you're going to be on my team. We're going to go undefeated for the school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate from kindergarten through college. Out of control. You know, we have some great Republicans at all. They didn't close at all. And they had a lot of pressure, but not from me. I allowed them to keep them open. But we have some Republican people. You look at South Carolina, how well they did. You can look at South Dakota. You can look at various states that did. Tennessee did fantastic system. And they did a fantastic job. Many of our young people are still dealing with the fallout of the prolonged school closures, and the administration that commits to get these kids back on track and quickly. Kids are going to go back to school and participating fully. And I will tell you that I want to congratulate Iowa on recently becoming the second state of the nation to deliver universal school choice. That's so great. School choice is where it's at. That's great. That's great. Very important to you, isn't it? Very important. I know every time I'm with Kim, she really talk about other things, but always been very, very strong. And that right to every single state in America, and we were doing that too. And I'll support the direct election of people is not getting the job done, of which you have many, 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 especially in the inner cities. The parents should be able to vote to fire them and to select somebody who will get the job done. In addition, I am going to pursue, and we studied it very closely at Iowa's Federal Department of Education and redistributing its functions to the states. I was ready to get it done. Then we had a bad election. Country from destruction, all of these things. And remember this one, having to do with education. Out of the top 40 countries, we're always at like the bottom of the list in terms of success per student. And yet, I believe it's about 3 times and even sometimes 4 times more than the second, third, and fourth country. So we spend 3 to 4 times more on educating a pupil, and yet we're at the bottom of the list. They're at the top of the list, and they spend much less money. So you know the system doesn't work. So breaking up, and 2024 is the final battle. That's it. An establishment will be over. I got to know them all. When I went there, I didn't know a lot of people. I had to rely on, and some. I know the bad ones. I know the weak ones. I know the strong ones. We know them all. And America will be a free nation once again. And with your support in these caucuses, we will, and we're always keeping you there, we're going to complete our mission that's done more than we have done. We rebuilt our military, largest tax cuts in history, largest regulation cuts in history. Even on a medical right to try, people are dying and they couldn't use drugs that were perfectly good, but it takes 2, 3, 4 years to have. And when people are terminally ill or very ill, I passed something, got it passed. They were trying to do it for 54 years, Europe or wherever you may go, to try and find a miracle cure you can stay home and use, because we have the greatest doctors in the world, the greatest labs in the world. And if you're critically ill, if you're terminally ill, or even a little bit less than that, you don't have to do. They didn't have money. They couldn't go to faraway lands. They'd go home and they'd die. They'd sit in their room and they'd die. Now you sign a paper and you have right to try. And you can, and people said, sir, you can't do that because you'll maybe make the person very sick. I said, the person is terminally ill. The person has 2 weeks to live. And we've saved thousands and thousands of lives. That was another thing. Nobody ever thought we could get that approved. But we saved thousands of lives. People that are living right now with drugs, impossible. But we did so much, and we rebuilt our military. Think of that. We had planes, or was flying, or we have all due All the beautiful stuff. The $85 billion that we gave away is too bad, but that's actually small compared to what we did. We rebuilt our entire... A lot of it away, though. I tell you, we're giving a lot of it away. And we're going to finish what we started. The people of Iowa have always been there for me, have always been there with you, and I always will be there with you. Together, we will end the era of... We will crush the deep state. We will save our economy. We will defend our farmers. We will evict Joe Biden from the White House. And we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you. John once told me, you know, when I do my last song, encore, encore, come back. And he'll come back, he'll do another good one, and drive him. Then he comes back, and he hits a little bit of a dud. The people leave unhappy. It's very stupid to do a couple of questions, but let's give it a shot. Should we do that? Should we or not? Yes? Okay. Do we have a... You know the story, right? Encores are always... Sam, you do. Good. Let's go. What do you have, Uncle Sam? I like that man. I like the way he's dressed. He's a good-looking Uncle Sam. Go ahead. Go ahead. You have a mic? Yeah, go ahead. You could give it to anybody that has a question. Anybody has a question, go ahead. Ma'am, please. Go ahead.
As a member of Moms for Liberty,
yes,
parental rights and education are top priorities.
Yes.
It's not right. How do we get back to the basics in the classroom, teaching, you know, reading, writing,
and arithmetic.
History, right.
That's right.
And civics. Thank you, Mr. President.
You know, everything I said tonight, they could say he's conservative, he's got a wonderful conservative voice. Actually, it's a voice of common sense. And with education, almost in many ways easier than other things, we have to get back to common sense on it. They understand it. So we're going to do something, and a lot has to do with your governors and your people that are leading your states, and, you know, they're going to be given free rein to do what they want to do. You happen to have a great governor that's very much into it, and she's taken the state so far, and we'll have other governors doing the same thing. And it's a really great question. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, please, go ahead. Go ahead. That's interesting. Yeah, Trey Gowdy's very good. I think he's very good. We're going to pick a great one, but we're going to have a lot of great choices. You know, this whole process is interesting. There are those that say they're all campaign over here. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Mr. President, our farmers are under attack from increased fuel and fertilizers from the activist CPA and reduce the costs for our Iowa farmers.
So you were totally protected 2.5 years ago. Hard to believe it's 2.5. I think you would say, like never before. We will bring that back so fast your head will spin. A big thing is to get the fuel price down. Once that fuel price comes, they're going to take care of all of it, and it'll happen very, very fast, very, very quickly. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Mr. President?
Go ahead, over here.
For us and are doing for us. What can you do to bring back manufacturing jobs?
Have auto plants in Michigan to tax some of these products that come back into this country because you have to make it competitive. I saved the dishwashing industry. I saved the washer dryer, the many industries because they were dumping product. It wasn't as good, but it was pretty good. And they were dumping product into the United States. I saved so many different manufacturers. If you look at Whirlpool in Ohio, they had such a problem. South Korea was dumping, and China, thousands. I put a 50% tariff on, and I was with them. That part of Ohio is thriving today. Don't forget, we have a power called the economy. We have a very powerful engine, and the problem is we have people that really don't know how to use it. They don't know how to use it to our collective advantage, but I know how to use it. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, question over here.
We're seeing mobs of illegals coming across our border. Just this last week, we saw a violent mob try to force their way across the border near El Paso. What can we do to finally secure our southern border and finish the wall?
It'll be secured on day one, and then we have to make a decision. What do we do with the 15 million people that have invaded our country, okay? And we'll do the right thing, that I tell you. We will start by getting the bad ones out. And the sheriffs and law enforcement who we love, the sheriffs know every one of them that shouldn't be here. You know every one of them that shouldn't be here. And we'll take care of business. Go ahead. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. President, the mainstream media came after you and your family like crazy, but not one of them seems interested in investigating the Biden crime family or Hunter's laptop. They also censored anyone who asked questions in 2020. How do we get to the bottom of this?
So the mainstream media had a very high approval rating when I announced I was running for president. And just today I read where it reached an all-time low because people are wise to what's been happening. What they have done, they really are. So last couple of weeks where the FBI and Twitter, it's called Twitter Files, where they work together, and they work together with Facebook. You couldn't say anything good about Trump, and you couldn't say anything bad about Biden. They had the laptop. They knew all about the laptop. They knew all these crimes were on the laptop. If they wanted to, they couldn't do it. I think Nancy Pelosi is packing. She's going. And I think Kevin and all of them turned out. That 5 or 6 nights of voting and voting and voting and voting, I actually think that was like a cleansing action. It was a great thing that happened. And he's a disaster. He's a disaster. He makes sense. They give him whatever they want. He gets his 10, 12 guys, and they vote in order to give the passage, because you need the 60 votes usually, and they vote and they give him what he wants. I do. In the meantime, I hope he's feeling well, but he's a big problem. Okay, go ahead. We'll take 1 or 2 more. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. President.
Got to be a good one. You know, if it's a good one, I'm out of here, right?
Honored to hear you speak,
Thank you.
of all. But my question for you is, what can you do to combat transgender athletes taking over women's sports?
Well, you've done it here because your governor's passed legislation. You can't. No, it's crazy. It's like, how does people are serious down the line? She sees friends that she's been swimming with. She's a champion, and then she sees this person next to her, and he's a monster. He looks like, and you know, he broke all these records, and it's just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You would almost say, and I said it once before, it doesn't make sense. And that one's a very easy one to figure. Anyway, you've got it done in Iowa. A lot of other states are doing it. Some states are going the opposite direction, which is shocking. It's shocking. But we'll get it done throughout the country. It's going to happen. It's happening. It's just common sense. It's a great question, too. Okay. Yes, please.
That really hurts, and it feels like Joe Biden doesn't even care about us in so-called flyover country. How are we going to fix these prices under control?
You said groceries, right? Staples, and you see the kind of numbers. A lot of it's going to have to do with energy. Once the energy comes down, a lot of other things are going to follow. Energy is so big in the world, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. I call it liquid gold, and it's right under our feet. I mean, when you look at the craziness, we're allowed to go to Venezuela to take their energy, and it's horrible. It's tar. It's bad. It pollutes. You know where they has the refineries for this kind of very bad potential oil? And they refine it in Houston. So if you're a big energy in the world, you know, I approved something, I was very proud of it, ANWR, Alaska. And ANWR is the biggest, probably the biggest site anywhere in the world, and probably bigger than Saudi Arabia, just that one in Alaska. And Reagan tried to do it, he couldn't get it done. Bush tried to do it, he couldn't get it done, of course. First day in office, they terminated ANWR. And this would have been incredible to have for our country. I mean, literally, we were going to become energy dump, that we would have started paying off debt, lowering taxes still further. We would have done something that nobody's ever seen before because we have so much. You know, I filled up and that's been taken for years and years. When our oil price hit like these crazy, what about filling in the caverns? These are these massive, as in Louisiana and various other salt, like the salt mines. They're big, massive salt mines. And I bought 7, going to be topping it out. And then Biden released all of that, and now we set a record low. They've taken all of it and then some, and we have the lowest that they've ever seen it. Right now, it's the lowest that they've ever seen, meaning the reserves themselves. We had it filled up almost to the top, would have been topped out. That's Fort me all the way. They got it stopped actually for a while. They have to pay right now. So it's a crazy thing. And a lot of times we'll say common sense, but the other side either doesn't have common sense or they really hate us. And let's take one more. I'm looking at that big, powerful guy there. I don't know, who's the better looking guy? What makes you? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're the greatest executive I've ever observed in my lifetime. And I think you've made it possible for governors, including Kim Reynolds, whom I love and respect, if that legislation passed for like the wall, it got paid for, it was passed, you signed it. And then there was the XL Keystone Pipeline. All of these things had to do with interstate commerce.
Right.
There are Section 1, or Article 1, Section 8 in the Constitution. Biden had no authority in law to reverse those things. And what would you do to see to that never happens again under your watch through your...
This could be the last question of the night because I love it. Appreciate it. Appreciate the job you do also. Do you know each other? Sheriff, do you know each other? Do you know who that is, that man? Huh? It has to happen, and it's very simple. The Keystone Pipeline was a tragic mistake that they made. That was so much coming from other parts, miles of wall, but I ended up getting, I want to use a nice word because we have such young people here, but the word that would normally be used would be, no, what they did is they took advantage of the American public, and we built hundreds of miles, but there was other areas that we could have built. I ended up having to take it out of the military because I considered it an invasion, and the Army Corps of Engineers did a fantastic job. We built hundreds of miles of it, but I didn't get it the old-fashioned way, like getting it approved, because the Democrats fought us every inch. We had 11 lawsuits. It took us 2.5 years. We won all. That's a good example. If you want to get something done, if you love our country and you really want, if it's so important, you're going to get it done. You're going to find a way to get it done. This was sort of a tiny fraction of that. And I said, this is an invasion of our country. And it is, by the way. This is an invasion of our country, what's coming across our border. It's no different. They're bringing plenty of them, but they're causing tremendous problem for our country. And it's a problem that we may have a very, very long, unless we do something quickly, and we have to do it smart, and we have to work with law enforcement to do it properly. Not going to be easy, but they're hurting our country. They're killing the blood, the life stream of our country, and we're going to do something about it. 8,000 workers, they endorsed, the union endorsed Biden, but all the workers are for Trump, okay? But the head guy endorsed Biden, and what did Biden do? Probably the second or third day in office, he terminated the Keystone Pipeline. So, so the people in that union are not too happy. They're not too happy. We would be the first to admit we have some great governors, Republican governors, perhaps some Democrats too, but they don't seem to have our policies at all. You look at our New York City is a crime den. Chicago is a crime den. You look at these great cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, you look at what's happening to our country. We cannot let it happen any longer. And one of the other things I'll do, because you're supposed to not be involved in that. You just have to be asked by the governor or the mayor to come in. The next time, I'm not waiting. One of the things I did was let them run it, and we're going to show how bad a job they do. Well, we did that. We don't have to wait any longer. We got to get crime. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Dang. So that was kind of loaded. That was loaded. Thank you, RSBN, for always streaming for all of us to have. I almost feel my bedtime calling. And I really wanted to do a show on information theory, basically. but I guess I'll do that tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll do 2 shows tomorrow. Who knows? Quite important and quite necessary, especially in this time of turmoil, I would say, and questions. So he's stating about these parental rights, right, is really important. Right now, parents aren't even allowed to go into a doctor's office if their kid is like over 8, 9 years old because, you know, they want to ask it about its gender. You can't defend your kid's civil liberties unless you have money to afford an attorney. And so, you know, the lawsuit that I had filed, that us filing pro se lawsuits is stupid. Where did all these groups, the Moms for America and Moms for Liberty, do? What did they do against us? You can't. See, that's the thing. When we see a problem, especially something so multifaceted and targeted like parental rights, you have to find the kill shot. The kill shot is by challenging the law. With friends that told me the same thing, and I was like, you guys suck. We need a solution. We're not going to sit here and milk it for money. We need a solution. We're not going to raise funds because you're, you know, pretty and you shout nice, right? Do it for her. I did it for all the kids, right? You've got to be targeting things like kill shots when you come at them. Am I not allowed to stand up for my kids' civil liberties without an attorney? So if I can't afford an attorney, that means my kid has no civil liberties, period. And this is why they're able to do the things they do at the schools. You know, I wasn't even going to talk about this today, but I think it's important that we do revisit that notion. Parents have every right to stand up for their kids. You get held accountable if all those things are out of order, but the minute their civil rights are violated, you have no say unless you have money. So, you know, for all those influencers out there, and there were pretty big people that said what she's doing, I mean, obviously it was the Akbars and the likes, right? Even Tracy Beans said that. Where are they? What the fuck did they do? See, this is it, for and by the people. Because once you get intertwined with these stupid fucking nonprofits, you know, give me money, let me do it. No, 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 no. They've got to be kill shots. And this is it. You target it directly. You're telling parents that the law says, and that's the thing. When I reached out to another attorney, you know, for assistance with the mask mandates, and he's a fantastic attorney, Maurice, constitutional attorney, great guy. He was like, don't you dare file it pro se, because you're going to fuck it up for the rest of us. I said, don't you understand? I need you to help me understand why. And he's like, cause lawyers should be in the courts. End of story, gone. I don't care how genius you are. You're wrong. The courts are for the people. The courts are for and by the people. And we have to change that because there is decades of case law stating that you have no rights. The only case that right? And I use that as well. I know the judge was stuck in a pickle, but it was his easy way out by not getting caught. Because remember, I brought the fact, right? But I made sure to file it when those documents came in. The point that I'm trying to make is I won the mask mandate case based on the facts and everything. I lost because I wasn't allowed to represent my child. So that's the thing. And so I am don't know the name of that work hard. It's got to be a targeted shot when you come at them. This was perfect. This was winnable. It should have won, but the judge went with established case law that parents do not have the right to represent their kids. That is why your schools, your healthcare institutions, and every other freaking whatever you want can do whatever they want to your kid while they're gender selection. You have nothing, okay? Nothing. So I just wanted to put it out there. We are in the Sixth Circuit. This shit's going straight to the Supreme Court. So whatever happens, I mean, maybe maybe he'll do the right thing, or maybe it just has to become law of the land and go to the Supreme Court, which I knew the minute your fucking cases. Every one of you that filed a federal lawsuit against the mask mandate identical to this are going in there as supporting documents. Just how many parents said, no, we're doing this, and they were shut down by the courts. So the fight is only just beginning. We're in the Sixth Circuit. We'll see how that goes. I mean, ideally, I wanted it to be done faster, but this was filed in 2021, you guys. It's 2023, okay? 2023. I'd like to see how Amy Coney Barrett would say, no, my kids have no rights, or how any other Supreme Court justice says that a parent has no right to defend their kids. That's all I want. And then he can kick it back to the federal court, and I can sue the shit out of the school district for getting paid to mask my kid. But for now, that was the primary goal. So, for those of you that filed lawsuits, right, don't misplace them. Have your denials. Wear that denial and that dismissal freaking proud, because you're going to make history. I just wanted to let you know that, because this is how you make change. By changing things that you can, right? This is something you can change, but you got to be persistent and you've got to be focused. Jeez. And God has to bring really good people around you. I kid you not, you guys. I can't even express that anymore. The minute it's law that you have the right to represent your kid's civil liberties, there's no more of this shit. I'm feeding your kid child porn. Phoebe was telling me how in English class they were discussing how to have anal sex. Now you're going to say, okay, the kids in that class are 16 to 17. Nobody cares. My kid doesn't need. Again, you have no rights. You as a parent cannot stand up for the civil liberties of your kid. This is established case law. This isn't like dilly-dallying. People just assume they do. No. It costs a lot of money. A lot. Your retainer to start will be 20 grand. And, so far, the bill, when it goes to SCOTUS, the paperwork, the filing, the printing, the 72 copies, they will milk it to the end. Right? It's very easy. They got the ESSER funds. They knew what the funds. It's really important, because President Trump talked about deep in the law. You take the kill shot. See, of my GDL, graduate degree of law. It was a 1 year. Well, it's a 3-year honors program, but I was in for the 2 years as an intern. So, some work that I was doing. And then when I went back, I used the same cover, but at another university with a graduate degree of law. So I'm just saying. So should have been a lawyer, should have been a lot of things. The government paid for a lot of my training. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to bid you guys a good evening. I want you guys to know, right, that we are making change. We have made change, and you're going to see this come to the surface really, really quickly. And, a lot of people just parroted a lot of shit. I how to target this. Because it's all a game. The only way to win is that you don't play. Or, if you're a really good player, checkmate. So, let me play a song. I feel like a song. I feel like a really good song. Hold on, let me find it. Okay, here we go. Let me share it. And I'll bid you guys a good evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. God bless.
So
of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.